So that was on my dad's side. Now on my mom's side, my mom had already been married once before she ever married my dad. Her next husband, they met in July, or no, met in June of 1985. I met him while I was spending the month with my mom. Before I went back to my dad's, because I lived with my dad and she was living only 30 miles away from us at the time. They had both asked me for permission to marry my mom. I said, yeah, go right ahead. I think it's great. Well, they had also told me I'd be part of their wedding. I came back 2 weeks later, and they were already married. And then, when they split up, I was living with my mom in Texas. And the same day that that guy was out the door, she moved another guy in that very same morning. And you want to talk about thinking that you're in hell. It was very, very scary. It was very frightening. He had chased me across the house when he was mad at me. He got mad at me because I had taken cooked hot dogs and sealed them in a bag and put them in the refrigerator. Which, according to him and my mom both, you don't do that. So they were going to send me to reform school. Yeah. Again, this is my testimony. I was 15 at the time. I tried living with them again later on when I was 16. And then 17. That's because, that don't matter. But point is, they were still living together. They weren't married. And she went ahead and, when she got the divorce from her other husband, she married him. And if you ask her, she could say that she thought she was living in hell because he messed her life up bad. And then, not too long after he was finally out the door, she met someone else. And they've been married almost 20 years. Well, actually, yeah, it'll be 20 years next year. A day after my birthday. Which, again, I wasn't at. I was not at. So, with those two role models, my dad and my mom, I didn't have very good role models when it came to marriage. The first marriage lasted unofficially 6 months. 6 weeks. I had married my childhood crush that I had known for years. Only to find out she wasn't in love with me. And this was after I was serving God again. I was 21. And I was having my first problems with physical pain in my back. Injuries. And I'll quit. rocking back in my chair. Excuse me. My second marriage was worse than my first. I married 2 years later my uncle's stepdaughter. I thought, hey, not blood. As long as it's not blood related, it'll be fine. I wish I had read that about the laws that God was setting for them in the Old Testament, because God was definitely also meaning not any relation whatsoever. We had a child. Her name is Anna Marie. She's 13 now. I have not done so good when it comes to her. I had married her mother twice. I'm not perfect. And I married another woman after her, and that didn't work out either. I'm not going to say how many times I've been married. But I'll tell you, I'm married for the last and final time. I've been married 4 years now. Almost 5. Going on 5. To a wonderful, precious, wonderful woman of God. She's got her flaws just as I got mine. And I was told for so many years that God would not use me, that God could not call me to preach, since I could not no longer preach or do God's work because I had been married so many times. Well, maybe I was not called to be maybe I was called to be a pastor and I messed that up. But I'll tell you, I didn't think I was even called to be a pastor until later on in my 20s. Because for all that time, from the time I was a kid, that when I first knew in my heart that God had called me to be a preacher, I had always knew in my heart for some reason and could see myself. I saw myself standing on a tree stump talking to people in another country. And I had seen myself also going from preaching at one church and preaching in another. Being an evangelist. And God has even revealed that to me within the last 6 months, that I'm an evangelist. Well, you ask, well, do you have any training to be have you been ordained? Yes, I had been ordained. I was ordained by God in 1993, before I was ever married. And I preached my first sermon in Sour Lake, Texas, at an Assembly of God church. I'm rocking the chair again, aren't I?